What is the best Fifth Doctor story? Hello and welcome to another video. As I've said, I've been doing a series of these recently, kind of both the worst and the best of particular Doctors. I think I've done the worst, second, fifth and sixth, and I think I've recently done the best sixth and second, I think. So it makes sense to do a counterbalance to the worst Fifth Doctor story with the best Fifth Doctor story. Now, as I've said, the Fifth Doctor era is not my favourite. I did think it was my least favourite. I'm not sure, to be honest. I think I might slightly give it the edge over the Hartnell era these days. I know it's shocking. I don't know what I never used to be a fan of the Hartnell era. I always found it a bit dull as a kid, and in my teens and even my 20s. Something happened in the early 2010s, and I kind of fell in love with it. Unfortunately, it's not a feeling that stayed, and I'm struggling with it again. So I think the Fifth Doctor era might actually be slightly over it these days. But I digress. Now, I did a what is the worst Fifth Doctor story. Wasn't very popular, judging by some of the dislikes. Some people got seriously butthurt by it. But to counterbalance, let's talk about what I think is the best Fifth Doctor story. And to be fair, there are a fair few valid choices. Now, while I may not be as big a fan of the likes of Kinder as some, or even The Visitation, which I know some people regard as an absolute classic. I don't mind Visitation before you hit that dislike button. I don't hate or even dislike The Visitation. I quite like it. But I would not really necessarily say it was one of my favourites, or even top 3 or 4 of the era. By the same token, there are people who absolutely hate Terminus and regard it as boring and rubbish and awful, and I rather like Terminus. So there you go. Again, it's not going to be my favourite, but I'd never understood the hate personally. But what is the best Fifth Doctor story? Now, I think there are 4 stories that I would say were solid candidates. One of those, possibly the most obvious of many, is The Caves of Androzani. Now, again, I love Androzani. It is a great story. I don't think it's quite my favourite. I'm not sure I'd even put it in my top 3, possibly top 4. Perhaps that's, I don't know, overhype or overwatching. Though, to be fair, I don't think I've really overwatched Androzani as much as I have some of the others in this list. I do know. Again, I like it. I think it's an excellent story, but maybe it's perhaps a bit too kind of dour and depressing and grim to really become being one of my favourites. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, top 3. I would say at number 3, I'm going to go slightly left field for some. Again, I know some people don't like the story at all. It has many fans, but there are a few that don't like it. I'm going to go with Enlightenment. I think Enlightenment is an excellent story. I think it's very atmospheric. I love the kind of the surrealness of it. It puts me in mind of some of the later McCoy stories. Honestly, there is a very strange, off-kilter, surreal quality to Enlightenment that is not particularly kind of indicative of the Fifth Doctor era as a whole. You don't really get many stories like this. I guess maybe Kinder would be the closest, but again, so I much prefer Enlightenment. I mean, I dig it. It looks great. Obviously, the BBC, as many people have noticed, particularly Andrew Cartmel, the BBC can do period stuff standing on their head, or they could anyway. And Enlightenment looks fantastic as a result. It's also got some of the best model work in the history of the show. Peeved me off so much when they put out a CGI'd version. If any story needs CGI less than Enlightenment, I can't think of it. I can think of maybe one shot that maybe could do with redoing, which is when the one with Turlough going and being overboard, which doesn't work. But otherwise, the model work is beautiful, and replacing it with cheap CGI is just insulting and ridiculous. But that's just me. Again, I digress. Again, I love Enlightenment. probably my third. I don't think I would put it any higher than that. Now then, the top two are really difficult because I absolutely love both of them. They're among my favourite stories. I'd say they're both, if not top 10, certainly top 20. And certainly top 10 of the decade, of the 80s, absolutely. This is tough. Second place, I'm going to go with The Five Doctors. I love The Five Doctors. It's one of my absolute favourite stories. I think it's probably the best anniversary special. Don't get me wrong, I love The Three Doctors as well. But there's just something truly magical about the fifth. And again, it must have been a Herculean task to pull off. It was too much even for the great Robert Holmes to do. And yet Terrance Dicks makes it look effortless. It's very cleverly done. I think it's very clever what he does, kind of writing it in vignettes with the individual doctors and their companions. It's a very, very clever way of doing it. And I guess it was also very clever in the sense that they did keep chopping and changing who was actually going to be in it. So he was having to doing it like that made it easier for him to kind of tweak it as it went. And it's very clever. And I think it's wonderful. I mean, it succeeds in bringing the atmosphere of those eras and the feeling of those eras in a way that I think is incredibly difficult to do. And certainly they've never managed it since. And I mean, the Three Doctors didn't even really try, really. As wonderful as wonderful as it is, and as wonderful as Troughton is in it, it doesn't feel like a second Doctor story at any point. It's definitely a Pertwee story. The Five Doctors, you get the feel of the various eras with those Doctors and companions. It's very clever, and I love the Five Doctors. However, I do think, at least I'm basing this off of my most recent rewatch, my absolute favourite Davison story, I think, is still Earthshock. I love Earthshock. I vaguely remember seeing it as a kid, even when I wasn't even a fan. I still have memories of that. And certainly when I saw it in the late 80s as a new fan, it was very quickly one of my favourite stories. It's pretty much always stayed that way. I think there was a point in the late 2000s, 2010s when I'd kind of overwatched it because it's that good. But again, I left it for a little bit longer than usual, and then the next time I loved it all over again. And the most recent time, which I think was either last year or the year before, who can tell? I think it was last year. It goes by so quick these days, who can tell? Again, I loved it all over again. And I mean, the point I watched it, whenever it was, last year or the year before, was a pretty low point in my enthusiasm for Doctor Who. And yet I fell in love with Earthshock all over again watching it. It's just such a great story, man. It's a contender for the best Cyberman story ever as well. Might be another video in itself. But yeah, I love Earthshock. And I think it is the best Fifth Doctor story. Thanks for listening. Talk to you again soon. Comment!